Last night I met what could quite possibly be the greatest showrunner that Doctor Who has ever had, and now I'm going to talk about it for an indeterminate amount of time. The episode started without an intro. I really don't know what's up with that. So now I'm going to talk about it. The episode was entitled The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and this video is going to be spoiler heavy. So if you've not seen this episode of Doctor Who, it's best to switch this video off now to avoid any spoilers. But now let us all dive headfirst into The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Okay, I'd like to apologise for the silly little intro that we just had. You know, seeing as Christian Bale decided to start the new show off without the iconic opening theme and opening sequence, I do much the same, both as a wacky little reference, a silly little joke, and the simple fact that I've not had a chance to do the new opening for the Timeshift. I'm doing a whole new thing, seeing as we've got a new showrunner and a new doctor and all that, but sadly I've not had a chance to finish it off, so now you know what the deal is with that. Before we get into it, I'd like to say a big thank you and a big hello to anybody who's joining us for the first time or anybody who's returning to us from previous episodes and previous series. It's great to have you with me once again. Anybody who is new to the show, basically it's going to work like this. This half of the video is going to be focused more on the production and the story side of the episode itself, with the second half of it being focused more towards the performances of Jodie Whittaker and the rest of the cast. That's how we do it on this, and of course, as I said in the intro sequence, this video is going to be spoiler heavy. So if you haven't seen this week's episode of Doctor Who yet, you're going to get it spoiled for you. There's no other way about it. I have a whole raft of notes in front of me, so if you see me looking down at any moment, you know why. It's not because I'm trying to avoid looking at you. So we'll begin by just saying here and now, I bloody loved this week's episode of Doctor Who. I mean, my God, it's astounding that this is the same programme that we saw last year. It just feels like, I know a lot of people saying it feels like a breath of fresh air for the show, but it feels like an old new show, at least in the way that it's shot and the way that it's put together. There's just this epicness to certain shots within the programme. I mean, just the establishing shot of Ryan, I think his name is, and Graham and his nan up on the hillside trying to teach him how to ride a bike. That's the kind of shot that usually a modern Doctor Who you'd reserve for in a big epic moment towards the end of the series, but that's one of the first things we see. This is probably the first time, probably ever, that I think that Doctor Who can, from a pure production point of view, disregarding the episodes and the performances, can genuinely stand shoulder to shoulder to American science fiction programming. It's really remarkable. It's great. It really is. Of course, the episode wasn't without its flaws, and I'll be getting onto those shortly. If we're going to just stick to the production side of things, whilst it did look epic, whilst everything did look brilliant, the overall feel to the programme, the overall colour palette and the locations, it made the episode feel a lot like a Sunday night ITV1 detective drama, which isn't exactly helped by the fact that Christian Bale, of course, did Broadchurch and Bradley Walsh was in the UK version of Law and Order, but, you know, there were plenty of moments in this week's episode where I was having to remind myself that I was watching Doctor Who, that this wasn't the setup for some kind of family drama set in Sheffield or where it's supposed to have been set. I'm happy that next week we're going on to Sci-Fi Adventure Time. I really hope that the rest of the series is going to be Sci-Fi Adventure Time. If we're going to weird planets or space stations or time periods, and isn't just going to be every few episodes we're off doing sci-fi stuff and then we're back to Sheffield, then we're back to Yorkshire. As much as I love Yorkshire, and that's really hard for me to say as someone from Lancashire, I really don't want this to turn into effectively the next generation of having episodes set in a council estate like we did during the Russell T Davies era, where every upper episode was set in a council estate in London, though it was actually filmed in Wales, and it really got old really quickly. And I feel that if this show really does want to stay fresh and original and exciting, we need those episodes in new locations. I have to say that yes, a lot of the changes that we had with this new incarnation of Doctor Who are not 100% new. The fact that we have interlock stories again is something they did a lot in the 1960s era of Doctor Who. The fact that I spent most of the summer, as a lot of you did, watching the Twitch stream of Classic Doctor Who was just reminding me of a lot of the things that were in Classic Doctor Who, a way it used to work, and has reinforced some of the issues I feel still exist within Doctor Who to this very day. This is a post-regeneration story, and these episodes are never really that good, with the exception of maybe the post-regeneration episode with John Pertwee, his first story. The majority of them have been kind of limp and lackluster, it has to be said. Maybe the John Pertwee one, maybe the Matt Smith one. Aside from that, the majority of them have been kind of awkward, for want of a better phrase. Granted, we're not quite in Twin Dilemma territory here. My God, this is still a fantastic episode, even if it is a post-regeneration episode. It still suffers from the problem that the Doctor is not quite the Doctor yet. The Doctor was only the Doctor in the final few minutes of the episode, and up until that point, it was the Doctor being manic and wacky and weird. Ooh, I think I'm gonna fall over. Oh, yes I am. Woo! Oh, bollocks, I forgot how far the water was. You know, in the run-up to this, I had joked that Jodie Whittaker's costume made it look as though she just ram-raided a charity shop, and yeah, that's where she got the costume. I think either that says something for Christian Ball, knowing, yeah, we're going to let a lot of people criticising this costume, let's just head them off at the pass, or I don't know, that was really a clever turn if they decided to do that. It makes the costume work. I thought at the time when it was revealed that it looked stupid. There's a part of me that still isn't sold on it, but god damn it, they really did justify her looking like a children's BBC presenter from the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, good lord. I have to say though that whilst I did enjoy the episode, there was the the hang-ups of it looking a little bit too ITV in some points, and that I didn't like the whole Time Lord post-regeneration mania thing. That I thought that the main bad guy was weak. He looked a lot like Mr. Shadowman, the Shadow Man from Class. I was just half expecting him to start going all wibbly wobbly and weird and going, "Oh, Doctor, I am here to get my revenge on the children from Class. I know there will not be a new series. That's why I'm taking it out on you." Yeah, I don't think that's something to get hung up on the episode for. I think that the bad guy, much like the Ortons at the start of a modern era when they were fighting against Christopher Eccleston, that they're just there for the sake of being there. Just to give the Doctor something to fight against. And you know what? I got it wrong. If you go onto my Twitter, @CBHall on Twitter, you will end up seeing my live tweeting that I did along with the show. And I theorise that the Robot Man and the squiggly wiggly electric spaghetti monster were bits of the TARDIS that somehow had become sentient and alive, and that the big reveal would be that the Doctor would use them to build the new TARDIS, and we'd have the TARDIS for new adventures, but that didn't happen. We're not seeing the TARDIS till next week. And because I've not been looking at the leaks, I have no idea what it looks like, so, we'll soon see about that. Maybe it'll look great, maybe it'll look good, maybe it'll look like a little bit awkward, like the new Sonic Screwdriver is. I'm going to say I don't really give a damn what the Sonic Screwdriver looks like. I'm not someone who collects them. I know there's a lot of great YouTubers out there who do the unboxing videos, who even do cosplay videos where they go through how you can get the best quality versions of it. I know there's plenty of websites that make more accurate versions of them than you can buy from the shops, but I like Patrick Thornton's Sonic Screwdriver for a reason. It's really, really simple and it's effective. Yeah, granted, it's only a pen light with a little bit stuck to the top of it, but you know what, I'll take that. I'll quite happily take that. Hey, maybe that'll be my bit of Doctor Who memorabilia that I'll have a little wave about and pretend is actually a thing or something, because I need a nerd prop. All nerdy YouTubers need a nerd prop. I don't wear a silly hat, I don't wear a meanie t-shirt. The closest thing to a nerd prop I have is all these figurines that I've got sat next to me, but you know what, now I am going on to a tangent. I did enjoy the episode, I genuinely did. I think that one of the great things about this week's episode is the fact it did have a genuine mystery to it. I got my theory as to what the monsters were wrong, and I'm not afraid to say it, and I'm quite happy about that. Having an episode of Doctor Who, I don't know how the monster's going to be defeated, and it isn't me just sitting there and waiting for the Doctor to pick up the sonic screwdriver, waft it around for a bit, and then saying the magic words to disappear the monster is great. the Doctor trying to figure out what's going on. Great, I love it. We need more of that. We need the Doctor to be less of the time-travelling, all-knowing god and more like a character who we can excitedly go on the adventures with. It felt like, for the first time in a long time, like I was going on an adventure with the Doctor. It may sound absurd, but, you know, when I started watching Doctor Who, it felt more like you were going on an adventure with the Doctor because you didn't know what was going on, you didn't know how to save the day, you didn't know what combination of things needed to be done to magic away the Daleks or whatever, and that was enjoyable for me. And I think that this version of Doctor Who, in terms of the show itself, is really appealing to that sense of wonder. It feels like you are vicariously going on an adventure with the Doctor. I feel that whilst it is a novelty to have a TARDIS crew for the first time, probably since the 1980s, probably the transition period between Tom Baker and Peter Davison, I'm honestly in two minds about it. I'll probably talk about it more in the performance section, but for the time being at least, I'll certainly say that, well, on the one hand it works, on the other hand, I think that we need to either slow the episodes down or maybe in the long term reconsider this. I did like the fact that a lot of extras died, and these extras weren't just Unit Soldier number 336. These were characters for the most part whom you got to know and understand, who you felt sympathetic for. Maybe aside the vegetable salad ninja guy who was just throwing the tomatoes at Mr. Tooth Fairy monster, but all of them you felt sympathetic for. You had the security guard, the granddad guy saying, "Oh no, oh there sounds to be a bit of to-doing going on there, so I'll go and see what it is. Say hello to your mum for me," and then he goes out and dies, and that felt sad. And you had the lad whose sister vanished, who actually died, and I know that had this been the previous era of Doctor Who, she probably would have been brought back to life. And I'm just going to say it here and now, it is perfectly legitimate to discuss and compare this to the Capaldi and Russell T Davies and the Stephen Moffat and anybody else, any other showrunner or Doctor there has been. I know there's a lot of people who have been saying, you know what, I don't want to hear the comparisons between the two of them. Can't we just enjoy it for what it is? Yeah, you can enjoy it for what it is, but the fact of the matter is, this is a television series that's been going on for almost 60 years now. It is perfectly legitimate to sit down and compare different eras of Doctor Who. And I know for a fact that, well, I don't know for a fact, but I have a God feeling that had this been the Stephen Moffat era, that the lost sister probably would have come back to life. The fact that she isn't saved, the fact that she isn't just a tooth now, that's all that really remains of her on what is now a dead alien's face, much like her brother and the old man and the drunk. That's all they are now. Just people dying, and they'll never be seen again. There is no saving, there's no magic words that'll bring them back. It adds a sense of gravity and weight to the stories that I think the series has needed. It isn't just some mean bad guy businessman that dies or a generic unit soldier. It's people that we get to know, even if it's for a brief period, and that does make the series have a little more darkness to them, which I feel that modern Doctor Who has severely lacked. I now going to end up moving on to performance section because I just looked at my notes and pretty much covered everything I want to do for the story and that. So let's now dive into performances. Ooh. You know, it's just occurred to me that I probably should have warned people that this week's episode of the Time Shift was going to be longer than most of them, but you know what, it's a new Doctor Who, it's a new show, it's a new showrunner, it's a new Doctor, so of course we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. But you know what, whatever, let's just talk about performances. And this might be the point in the video where some of the goodwill that I may well have built up with some of you might start to melt away. I have to say that whilst I did enjoy Whittaker as being the new Doctor, I think that it's going to take a little bit of time for her Doctor to properly set in for me. That's not to say that I hated her. I, for the most part, enjoyed her performance. I enjoyed her take on the Doctor. However, I feel that she might have been a little bit too close to the Matt Smith, David Tennant style of Doctor that I'm really comfortable with. I'm not a fan of their takes on the Doctor, and I don't really like the fact that modern Doctor Who has to have more manic incarnations of the Doctor. I would have preferred a performance that had a little more gravitas to it. A Doctor Who wasn't as manic to it, but you know, this is a post-regeneration episode of Doctor Who. So yes, Doctor's going to be a lot more manic, and the actual nature and personality of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor isn't going to really manifest itself here and now. That's understandable, and maybe in a couple episodes' time I'll be totally on board with her. I'm not saying that I hated her, not at all. I thought that she was enjoyable, I thought she was funny, I thought that she was great. I love the line where she said, "Oh, I could build that, probably," or whatever the line was. That felt like something I would say before I've embarked on any other design technology task that I've ever had in my life. I did enjoy her. I think that she has a freshness to her that I think the show has needed. I think that after the Capaldi era, we needed a Doctor that was a little bit more like Tennant and Smith, as much as I may not particularly like their incarnations and their versions of it. We needed a Doctor that the fans, the more casual fans, could really get behind and identify with, and didn't feel quite as abrasive as Capaldi did when he first took part in the show. I can understand the need for that. I'm, in some ways, thankful that we have gone for somewhat more like this. On the other hand, yeah, it is a bit of a shame that we don't have a Doctor who quite has the same kind of gravitas as Capaldi did, but you know what? On her own merits, she was great. She was truly a great Doctor for what we had thus far. I want to see her, though, as the Doctor, not as manic post-regeneration Doctor. I want to see what they're going to do to really define the 13th incarnation of the Doctor. I want to see what's going to make her her. What's going to separate her from all the previous incarnations of the Doctor by the fact that she's a lady in that. We need someone that's really going to make us say what the personality of her Doctor is, what's going to be the defining trait of her, like you can do with pretty much every previous incarnation of the Doctor. And until we get that, I'm always going to be a little bit on the fence about her. Once we get that, which may well be an episode or so's time, I probably will be sold on her 110%. I know that for a lot of people, they've been desperate to have a Doctor like this, not just due to the fact that she's a woman, but also due to the fact that you can have a Doctor who they can enjoy and not feel like they're going to tell them off and give them homework. But you know what, that's different strokes for different folks. As for the rest of the cast, well, they did commendably well. I'm not going to say they were wooden. I'm not going to say that they were bad actors. But what I will say is the fact that I feel that the TARDIS crew phenomena, there is a reason why we never really did that out of the early 1980s. For the simple fact that it makes it hard to really develop characters from episode to episode. You either have the thing where you have a single episode focused on a particular character, or you try and drip feed it across the entire series, or however long it is that these particular companions are going to be with the Doctor. Are these companions going to be with the Doctor in a series of so's time? I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe we're going back for a classic Doctor Who where the Doctor can't exactly just drop people back in their original time and place like they can do in modern Doctor Who. We'll soon see about that, but I feel that given everything that was going on in the episode, it was hard to be sold on them in quite the same way as I have been from the debut of other companions that we've had. I feel that maybe that's a result of the stories itself. I feel it definitely opened a lot stronger than it ended. I felt that towards the end of it, the pace of modern Doctor Who started to catch up with it. That it was a lot more of, whoa, quick, we've got to take the Doctor, we've got to get onto the thing, we've got to pull the thing to stop them up. I don't want episodes of Doctor Who to just be the Doctor running and pointing at things whilst the dun music plays in the background, as it pretty much almost always was in the Rossetti Davies era. I hope we're not going to get that. The overall feeling that I get from the show is that we're not going to get to that, but you know what, I just want quiet moments where characters can do their bit, can do their thing, can develop in ways that actually do genuinely feel compelling, and not like the Rose Tyler thing of her stating her personality, or the Pearl Mackie Bill thing where she just says who she is at the start of the episode and then we just go from there. At the moment, there is nothing to put my hands up and say the show is ruined and Doctor Who will never come back and it'll be terrible from here on out. But for the time being, at least, I do genuinely feel that things need to settle down a little bit beyond anything else. But, you know, we're starting to get into overview stuff, so let's now dive head first into the overview. After the overview, my overall thoughts about this week's episode of Doctor Who. Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It's really a new and novel feeling to me to be actively looking forward to next week's episode of Doctor Who. It's a sensation that I've not had in a very long time. I know that a lot of people don't want to talk about Stephen Moffat, but yeah, towards the end of his era, I was not looking forward to new episodes of Doctor Who. Had it not been for me doing the time shift, I probably would have given up on Doctor Who by now. But here and now, this really, I know that this might come back to bite me in the arse in a few years' time when everyone's sick of Chris Chimbal, but this direction that they're taking Doctor Who, if this first episode is anything to go by, this is what I wished modern Doctor Who would have been like back when it started in 2005. Because this feels more like an evolution of classic Doctor Who into a modern era than modern Doctor Who did compared to the classic one, at least when it started. If you go from classic Doctor Who to modern Doctor Who, there is a massive difference in terms of the pacing, and I dare say the quality of certain episodes of it. It feels almost like a different programme, like it has, for all intents and purposes, been totally rebooted. And whilst I do have a lot of love for that first series of Doctor Who, whilst I still love a quite fair bit of Russell T Davies' era of Doctor Who, and I do have a soft spot for quite a few episodes from Stephen Moffat's era, this does feel more like a continuation of classic Doctor Who than anything any of them ever did. There is a genuine mystery here. There's a darkness to it. There is a fear factor that modern Doctor Who hasn't had. It has a pace to it which, bar the final few minutes of it, actually allow the episode to a degree to breathe in a way which a lot of modern Doctor Who episodes frankly do not have. Of course, granted, I think that the episode did kind of whimper out towards the end of it. It went way too quickly. But, that's just modern Doctor Who for you. It's interesting to see if that's going to be a factor of the show going forward. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe that was just because, we're running out of time here. They didn't give us a 60-minute slot, so we just got to do as much as we can whilst we can do it. I'm a little bit worried about the fact we're only going to have 10 episodes this series and not the usual 12 or 14 as we've had before, but as long as we get a Christmas episode, that's all I want. I want a Christmas episode. I want to see the opening theme. Speaking of the theme itself, I know I didn't discuss that in the opening half of the video, but my God, it sounds so good. Like, Jesus Christ, the new composer, whoever came up with that, they really knocked it out of the park with it. For the past few weeks or so, I've been listening to this remix someone has done of the Doctor Who theme. They call it the Hybrid Mix. I'll include a link to it in the video description below, which is them taking samples from all the previous Doctor Who themes, even ones like that one Doctor Who theme that they used for one episode in Australia. They used all of them to create this strange creation, this mashup of every incarnation of the Doctor's theme music, with close to the exclusion of the Jodie Whittaker one. And this feels much like the same kind of thing, albeit going from a different standpoint. I don't think it's used any samples of classic Doctor Who, but my God, it feels like we've somehow, in some ways, gone back to an almost golden age Doctor Who kind of look and feel to it. If the blurred out background to the closing credits is anything to go by, we're going to have an intro sequence that may be a little bit more in keeping with the John Pertwee, Tom Baker era of Doctor Who, which I'm perfectly fine with, and I love the fact that we've got a theme which sounds a lot more Doctor Who-y and a lot less Doctor Who movie-y, if that makes a lot of sense to it. I enjoyed the show, I enjoyed where it's going. Yes, I do have a few issues with it, but these are long-standing issues with Doctor Who, which at this point I think it's just fair to say that we just got to suck it and see, we just got to deal with them. I am interested to see where they take Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I hope that they let her settle a little bit more and they let her to define that incarnation of the Doctor's personality a lot more, that she isn't just going to be David Tennant Mark III, but we'll soon see about that as we go forward to it. But what did you think, dear viewer? Did you love this week's episode of Doctor Who? Did you hate it? Are you kind of trepidatious, if that's even the word? Let me know in the comment section, whichever website you're watching this on, and I will get back to you shortly. And of course, like, share, subscribe, and click your bell if you want to watch more Doctor Who stuff. It has been great to have you with me, and I'm now going to do something that I'm sure will not have any kind of wacky jokey effects to it, because you see, I've built myself a little device. It's a little science fiction device. I can't lift it up to show you on camera because it's really heavy, but I'm just going to, type some buttons here. It's a device that will allow me to see next week's episode of Doctor Who, so let's just do the sci-fi bit and...